morning. My name is Carol Erickson, and the name of my show is Watercolors, The View from My Kayak. All the photos in the show were taken while I was on the water in my kayak, most of them at Mille Lacs Lake in Minnesota, and a few of them on the Mississippi River here in La Crosse.
Thanks, Carol. Thanks for joining us. When did you first get into photography?
I got into photography a long time ago, and my undergraduate degree is actually in photography and filmmaking. And then I came to La Crosse, which is how I got to La Crosse, for graduate school, and I studied with Roger Grant in photography and with Glenn Wolfe in the film department, where I had a graduate assistantship. But I had a young child, and I had to work, and I spent my professional life as a librarian here in La Crosse and on Orcas Island in Washington State, and also in Prescott, Wisconsin. And I promised myself that when I got done with my working life, I would go back into photography, and that's what I've been able to do.
Would you say that after you finished working was when you made the transition from kind of practicing photography as a hobby to practicing it more seriously?
Yes, and what really started it all is, unfortunately, the very sad events of the forest fires out west. And I live on the northwest corner of Mille Lacs Lake in a little area called Malmo, Minnesota, right on Lake Mille Lacs. And the smoke from the forest fires out west started coming and going across the northern corner of the lake. And the sunsets were unbelievable. The colors, the full sky would be covered by the colors in the sunset. And so I started going out about 20 minutes before sunset to about 20 minutes after and taking shots of these incredible sunsets. And because I was really low on the water, like you are in a kayak, you're, instead of being in a boat or on a dock, you are right on the level water. And I could see these reflections on the water that I'd really never seen before, even though I've spent my entire life every summer on this lake. I never saw the colors that were there. And so I became fascinated with it, and that's where I've gone the last 2 years. And this exhibit reflects that experience.
What would you say one thing you know now that you wish you knew when you had started is?
Oh, I think that's too long a list. I can't really answer that. You just learn a lot as you go along. One thing I'm definitely going to do is I'm going to go larger. I'm going to go much larger scale. So that's the next thing that I'm getting into.
Alrighty, perfect. As far as equipment goes, do you have any personal favorites for equipment? As far as
I brought that along because I get that question, and I have spoken to different groups. And they always, at the end of my talk about my work, they say, "Can I see your equipment?" Well, this is my equipment that I use when I do the shots on the water. It's a Canon PowerShot. It's a pocket camera. It probably costs less than $200. And it was really fun when I first showed this to people who were very tech-minded. And I was talking to a group, and everyone had their huge Nikons and Canons with lenses this long and all the fancy equipment. And I couldn't even really talk to them about most of their equipment. And I pulled this out when they asked that question, and they all laughed, and they said, "Oh, Carol, that's really funny. What do you really use?" And I said, "This is what I really use, because I'm in a kayak. I can fit this right into my life jacket pocket. I've even dropped it into the water twice. One time it was pretty soaked, and I just took it apart and dried it in the sun and put it back together and used it again." And I do have a Nikon, a very nice camera, but it gets in the way when I'm kayaking. I'm constantly hitting it, and then I'm worried about dropping this expensive equipment in the water. So I think the moral of the story is that it doesn't really matter what your equipment is. I mean, there are phones that have much better cameras than I do. It's in the eye. It's what you're looking for. It's the view that you have. And what I'm really interested in is almost abstract, impressionistic, so that people have come into shows I've had, and while I'm setting it up, the last show that I had up on the Mississippi River this summer, they came in and they said, who's the painter? Which I thought was perfect because they actually thought that I painted these, and that's the effect that I'm going for. So I feel like I'm painting with my camera.
You had mentioned that the name of the exhibit is Watercolors, the Views from My Kayak.
Mm-hmm.
Does all of your work originate from your kayak, or is it just an area you appreciate?
It's just an area. This is the particular thing I've been working on for a couple of years, but I have two more projects in my mind now, and they although they involve water, they're going to be nothing like this. It's a totally different thing that I'm going to be getting into next. So.
Do you have any art in this exhibit that stands out as your favorite among the other ones?
That's a real hard question, but one that I really like a lot. I'm standing in front of right now. It's called Orange Night Series Firewater. And I like this one because it shows so much of what I'm trying to get at. It's a photograph, but it has a real impressionistic feel to it. And it looks like I painted it. And I'm trying to paint with my camera. And although this was a totally calm night, the water was not moving at all. It looks like it is here. And it looks like it's actually on fire right here. And this is just the reflected, extremely bright and impressionistic sunset. And then I like the movement that I can see in this reflection. So that really represents the items that I like the best in my photos.
How do you edit your photos to gain or achieve that impressionistic feel?
That's a really good question, and I'm so glad that you asked it because people ask me that a lot. And the truth is that I don't use any of the fancy editing programs. These photos are pretty much what I see, and I add contrast so that the colors can pop up a little more. But I don't use Photoshop or anything else. I don't have anything against it. It's just that I'm able to capture what I want. So I think what I'd like to say is the most important thing about taking photographs is being at the right place at the right time and getting the image that you want. And that's what works for me.
All right, that was
Thank
great.
you.
Thanks so much, Carol.
Thank you. Thank you very much.